Good morning, everyone. See that people are still joining today. Good afternoon, actually, because it is 12:01. Welcome to this workshop organized in the frame of the QualDeEPC project on next generation energy performance certification and deep energy renovation, and it's linked to the EU renovation wave. I am here today to welcome you with my colleague, Dr. Stefan Thomas, who's the coordinator of the QualDeEPC project. And first of all, Happy New Year. I wish you all the best for 2021. It can only be better. We are very pleased to see so many of you connecting today. It is very great, especially because it is lunchtime. So we have prepared a little bit of food for thought for you today instead of real food. We hope we will enjoy it. My name is Clémence Priken. I am project officer at FEDEREN. It is the European Federation of Agencies and Regions for Energy and the Environment, and I am partner of the QualDeEPC project. I will be your host for today. Before we go into more details, just a couple of technical things. You are all muted and with your cameras off. It is to avoid any disturbances, and you will be so during the whole session. And the session is recorded, as you may have heard from the synthetic voice. Of course, as the audience, you are warmly invited to share your questions, and you can do so using the question section in the dashboard you have on your side. If you have any issue, do not hesitate to contact the organizers. You can do so with the chat box also in the dashboard. Now, this being said, let's start with a very brief introduction of the QualDeEPC project. Dr. Stefan will present it more thoroughly, but this is just to give some insight. So the aim of the project is to improve the quality and the cross-convergence of energy performance certificate schemes and the link between EPC and deep renovation. This is why it stands for high quality energy performance assessment and certification in Europe, accelerating deep renovation. The objective of the project itself is really to improve the practical implementation, assessment, issuance, design, and use of EPCs, as well as the renovation recommendation in the countries participating in the projects, but then, of course, beyond. The reason of the workshop itself is that the project has published a green paper on good practice in EPC assessment, certification, and use, and in which there are draft policy proposals and draft description of tools on 7 areas that will be presented later on. And these areas have been identified as the priority of the project for the development of enhanced EPC schemes. Some of you may have heard of it before, and if not, I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter. And in any case, my colleague, Dr. Stefan Thomas, will present them later on. So please allow me to jump to the agenda of the day. As you can see, we will have a first part dedicated to the relation between EPC and the EU renovation wave, thanks to our participants. And in the second part, we will dig deeper in the proposals themselves, which were published in this green paper I just mentioned. Let me take this as an opportunity to remind you again that we really want the audience to take part in this discussion. If you have anything you want to ask, please do so in the question box. And if you have a question specifically for one of our panelists, please specify it in your question as well, so that we can make the best out of it. So without further ado, let's move on to our first speaker, Mr. Olaf Luiks from EASME. Mr. Luix, please, if you have the possibility, turn on your camera and your microphone, and we will soon make you a presenter as well. You are a project advisor at EASME. Hello.
Hello.
And you will present to us today the energy performance assessment and certification projects that were funded under the H2020 energy efficiency calls in 2008. This is what we call in our jargon the sister projects of QualDeEPC.
Okay.
If you are ready, the floor should be yours.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
It may take a little bit of minutes, yes.
So I have some. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
It should be visible because at my side it's, well, I will escape one moment then and I could see it at least, so I'm not sure why someone else cannot see it. Okay. Now you should be able to see it, I hope.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, then we are there. Give me one moment to go to slideshow now. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so the little boxes, communication boxes, are not visible, I hope, on the screen, just my presentation.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Olaf Lax. I'm project advisor at EASME. And in our agency, we have a number of projects on energy performance certification that have been selected under different call for proposals from 2018 until 2020. And so it's basically 3 consecutive call for proposals. The first one was in 2018 when we selected 3 CSA projects. For those not used to EU jargon, CSA stands for coordination and support actions, and it's basically projects that are almost ready for market uptake. So the solutions developed by those projects should be going straight to the market. Then in 2019, we selected another 4 projects, which are innovation actions. Innovation actions mainly meaning that they are less ready for market uptake, but really look into new innovative approaches. And then we had the 2020 call, under which we might select or fund another 4 CSA projects, bringing us up to a total of 11 projects on energy performance and certification, which is quite a considerable portfolio for one topic. If I can share with you some preliminary statistics from the projects that we fund until now. So we fund 7 projects out of that basically cover together 23 member states, Switzerland and UK. This is very good for this kind of call for proposals to have already such a broad geographical coverage. And also very interesting to see is that out of the beneficiaries involved in those projects, 78 are unique on a total of 84, which also means that those projects go wide in such a sense that it's not always the same people applying in projects, but really trying to involve new beneficiaries. And this is also something that is very good if we see this in a portfolio of projects. Then I go immediately to the projects themselves. The first project selected under the 2018 call, as I said, 3 projects. The first one being Extendo. Extendo is an interesting project because it wants to develop this Extendo toolbox, which is basically a knowledge hub with 10 innovative EPC features. A number of them are technical features, which are focusing on EPC assessment processes and the inclusion of new indicators that are important for the Commission, such as smart readiness indicators, comfort, outdoor air pollution, real energy consumption, and district energy. Apart from those features, there are also innovative approaches to handle and maximize the value of EPC data. So technical features and data-oriented features such as EPC databases, building logbooks, tailored recommendations, financing options, and one-stop shops. And then you see there the website of the project. Then another project funded under the same call is the QualDeEPC project, which is hosting the meeting of today, of course. As said already, it focuses on the practical implementation of EPCs and renovation recommendations. It's one of the outputs will be this guidebook and tools for the enhanced converging of EPC assessment and certification schemes, also the deep renovation network platforms and the one-stop shops and the roadmap for conversion of EPCs. You see there the website. And then the last project of the 2018 call is UCERT. UCERT that basically wants to develop a new EPC scheme based on SAN standards. It also looks into the development of additional indicators for asset rating, operational rating, and smart readiness. And then also an important point of this project is the training and certification of assessors. And the project website is also indicated there. As I don't have much time, I can only give you a short flavor of those projects, but you see you have the websites and you can find more information there. I will then go to the projects of the 2019 call. As indicated, it's an innovation action. So those projects really go a bit more into innovative things, bringing new approaches to development. The first one is the D2EPC project. D2EPC was selected because of its clear focus on digitalization, its focus on large data collection, the development of digital twin and smart readiness indicators. It will also work on the calculation of a novel set of energy, environmental, financial, and human comfort/well-being indicators. It will develop a digital platform for the issuing and updating of EPCs, integration of GIS and user-centered recommendations, benchmarking and forecasting of buildings performance, and also performance verification services. It's also important because it includes standardization, certification bodies, and member of the concerted action of the Energy Performance Building Directive as partners. The project website is also there at your disposal. EDICE is another project selected in 2019. It's a project that looks into the development of dynamic certification of buildings following real-time optimization of energy consumption and comfort, and look also at renovation roadmaps. The unique selling point of this project was basically that it tries to combine smart technologies with low-tech solutions and the free running potential of buildings for EPC labeling. And without this project is very relevant in the framework of looking at historical buildings and also buildings in the Mediterranean that rely on natural ventilation. Another aspect of the project is a strong focus on end user behavioral and both focusing on tenants and building operators, giving them feedback on the building performance and also recommendations to adapt their behavior in such a way that it increases the energy performance of the buildings and their living spaces. The project website is also available and visible here. EPC Recast. EPC Recast is unique in the sense that compared to the other projects, it's basically focusing on one type of buildings, namely existing residential buildings, and tries to combine its work on EPCs with renovation roadmaps. It also pays a lot of attention to end users and building owners and try to involve them in the development of a cloud-based platform as well as the needs of EPC assessors. This is also something they put a specific focus on these needs of EPC assessors. And also specific attention is paid to comfort levels and personalized instructions on renovation options and the costs related to them. The last project of the 2019 call is the EPC ePanacea project that basically wants to develop a smart energy performance assessment platform, the so-called CPAP. This platform is very interesting because it has 3 modules with different levels of technological complexity, the most complex being a smart and data-driven energy performance tool using inverse modeling and operational data. Then a tool that looks at simplified monthly based calculations aligned with ISO standards, and also an advanced hourly simulation model also aligned with ISO standards. It also develops a decision matrix that will assist end users to select the appropriate modules for their use. And what is nice in this project is also that it has 5 regional exploitation boards that basically cover the whole of Europe, the UK and Norway. So it has a lot of potential to get feedback from end users and different types of target groups. This is basically a quick overview of the projects that we fund until now. So 7 projects devised over 2 calls for proposals. And then with the call that run in 2020, also an energy performance certification. This was again a CSA call, so more bringing projects to the market. We will likely fund 4 projects. They are selected because they are complementary to the current projects. And what you see here is what you basically can expect from those projects. They will focus on large-scale comparison of EPC methodologies. They will also link further EPCs to building renovation passports and building logbooks. They will look into the development of electronic building passports and also look at EPCs and the whole building lifetime. At this stage, I can unfortunately not say much more on the new projects because we are still in full negotiation with them. So as you can see, to conclude, we basically are really building a big portfolio of EPC related projects. And we will also look for ways how we can make them work together as much as possible with the support from EASME, of course. And with this short overview of projects, I would like to conclude my presentation and thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Luix. Thank you very much
Yes,
for your
I kept
presentation.
it short. So
yes, we hope that we would get a couple of questions. I'm not sure we have yet anything, so we may want to move on with our next panelist. If we have some more questions, then of course we may want to come back to you. So
okay. Thank you very much.
All right. So this, as I just said, let's move on. Let's move on to you, Mr. Pau Garcia Audi. I believe you cannot open your camera, but I'm sure you are with us now. So, Mr. Audi, you are a policy officer at DG Ener. You are working on more specifically the energy efficiency of buildings and products. And today you will give us some more information about the EU renovation wave that we have all heard of already. But this is great to have you today in any case, because we would like also to know a bit more about the renovation wave and it's linked with the improvement of energy performance certificate systems.
Yep, thank you. Just 1 second, I'm trying to put the main screen. There you go. Hello, good morning, everybody. Indeed, Clemens, my name is Pau Garcia. I work for DG Energy in the unit B3, Energy Efficiency in Buildings and Products. For those of you that have been in touch with DG Energy in the past few years, it may surprise that I say B3. This is our new denomination as DG Energy underwent an internal reorganization last week to better reflect the work in the coming years. So we are no longer DG Energy C4. We are now DG Energy B3. That's just in case you're trying to get in touch with us. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in today's event. It is very relevant for us, as I hope I will try to make that the reasons for that clear in my presentation. Before I start, I would like to highlight something that I think it's quite relevant, which is that these type of projects are like QualDeEPC. Very important for us at DG Energy level, but they're also very important for member states. The projects usually get in touch, or they get in touch with the member states through the concerted action EPPD, or sometimes through national contacts. And for example, a number of projects under what at the time was Intelligent Energy Europe program, talking about 2007, 2008. Were pretty much instrumental on getting EPCs off the ground back when we were starting to set up the EPC framework, not just in the EU, but also in the different member states. But I divert a little bit. I will now concentrate on the renovation wave and why, or what role will we have with the EPCs. So some of you may know on 14th October 2020, which already looks like ages ago, the European Commission presented the renovation wave strategy. It's got a very simple, or at least straightforward objective, which is to double the current renovation rate in the next 10 years, and then make sure that these renovations lead to higher energy and resource efficiency. So in terms of objectives, it's a pretty simple objective, double the current renovation rate. In terms of how we get there, that's a lot more complicated because we have to touch a number of elements, and we have to make sure that we do so in an integrated and coherent manner. So, for example, we need to address the legislative framework, the policy framework. We need to also look into how to finance all of this. And also we need to make sure that we do it properly. So, for example, we need to look into the skills of the workers that are going to be doing the majority of the works. And also we need to make sure that we address issues such as energy poverty. And we are in the middle of a global pandemic and an economic crisis. So in addition, we need to look into how the renovation wave can play a role into the recovery post-COVID-19. So why do we put so much emphasis on renovating buildings? Some of you may already know that the building sector is one of the largest energy consumers in the EU. It consumes approximately 40% of the energy and generates approximately 32% of the greenhouse gases emissions in Europe. So it's one of the big elements. If we want to achieve a decarbonized EU, at some point we will have to deal with buildings. And we need to do this in an effective manner. At the moment, approximately only 1% of buildings undergo some level of energy efficient renovation. Actually, we renovate about 10% of the buildings per year, but only a number of these renovations actually do address the energy performance of a building. So we have a lot of cases where works are being done in a building, but the energy performance of the building is not changed. And we really need to change that because, well, we estimate that 75% of our building stock is currently is energy inefficient. But we also know that about 85 to 95% of the building stock in 2050 is already here today. So if we want, as I mentioned before, if we want to achieve a decarbonized EU and a decarbonized EU building stock, we have to address the existing building stock. So the objective of the renovation wave is basically renovate approximately 35 million buildings by 2030 and generate additional 160,000 green jobs in this period. This links a little bit to what I mentioned before, that the renovation wave can play a significant role in the recovery post-COVID-19. The issue is that building renovation is a very local economic activity, and it brings a lot of benefits at local, regional, and national level. So it's an investment that stays where it's generated, and moreover, a lot of the components that we put in buildings and in building renovations, they tend to be products that have been manufactured in Europe. So we are really looking into something that really brings to the EU economy. So a number of the elements that we are looking in terms of triggering this renovation wave and what the EPC is doing in these aspects. So one of the elements we're looking, for example, is stronger regulation standards and information on the energy performance of buildings. For example, we're looking at mandatory minimum energy performance standards for existing buildings. This is something that has been already in place, or some member states are putting in place. And a possible extension of building renovation requirements. And particularly, we're looking at updating the rules for energy performance certificates. A bit more on this later. Then another element we're looking is accessible and well-targeted funding to carry out these renovations. So there are a number of programs financing or directly financing building renovations, particularly those that fall under the European Regional Development Funds, the cohesion funds, but also the Next Generation EU, which is a particular instrument being created to support the recovery of the EU post-COVID-19. We're also looking at, for example, how can we simplify rules for combining different funding streams, and also how we can incentivize the use of private financing, because one thing that we're pretty sure that we've looked into is that public funding, and particularly EU public funding, is nowhere near enough in order to carry out all the renovations that we need to carry out. So it is necessary to bring it private financing. Sorry, I'm just changing the slides. So energy performance certificates, and where do we see them? So first things first, where are we now? Sorry, I think I jumped one slide. Yes. So sorry again. It's a very sensitive mouse. So energy performance certificates. They are, I would say, probably because it's one of the areas that I'm most interested in, that energy performance certificates are one of the key areas in the EPBD. We have had energy performance certificates since the first EPBD in 2002. Then we updated them in the recast in 2010, and we also updated them again in the amendment of the EPBD in 2018. The EPC is basically an information tool. At its core, that's what it's meant to do. It's to provide information on the performance of the building. And also to provide recommendations on how to improve the performance of the buildings. Of course, these recommendations are not very detailed. It's not, for example, at the level of detail of what could be, for example, a building renovation passport, but it's meant to provide an indication of what things you can do, how much it could cost, what kind of energy savings you could do. It's not a detailed plan, but it is a first step. However, because of its nature, the EPC also has a number of other uses. It's, for example, a very powerful policy instrument to determine, for example, it's also links to finance. So, for example, when we provide public funding for projects, a lot of the level of finance or the certification of the finance is done thanks to the through the EPC. So, for example, if you're getting a grant, at some point you will need to provide a certificate, an EPC, in order to certify that you have carried out the works and that the performance of the building has been improved. It's also a powerful policy instrument, for example, because it allows us to get information about the general level of the building stock. And this is one of the biggest problems we have at the moment, that the information that we have on the building stock across Europe is very, very limited, due to a variety of reasons. But in general, information on buildings, and particularly information on the energy performance of buildings, is very, very limited. And the final element that I think it's particularly relevant is that the EPC is starting to be used as a tool in market valuation. That is, when somebody values a building for its sale or for rental, they take energy performance into consideration. And the EPC is a tool that provides the necessary information to do that. So we see the role of the EPC growing in the coming years, and particularly what we want to reinforce right now is its role in the renovation. So you've heard me talk about a possible, a revision of the EPBD. Indeed, we are planning in that targeted revision of the EPBD by the end of this year. That's when the Commission intends to publish its proposal. What are the next steps? In the coming weeks, we will publish a roadmap that will provide the first elements of what this revision will include, and you will be able to provide feedback to this roadmap. Afterwards, we will publish a much more detailed document in the open public consultations with a number of elements, with a number of specific questions, and we invite you to participate as much as possible and to provide your feedback in this open public consultation. That will be one of our cornerstones in order to develop the actual policy proposal. And also, we will carry out a number of exchanges with stakeholders in the coming months. These may be direct one-to-one meetings, but particularly we're looking at organizing a number of workshops, which will have to be remotely considering the current situation. But definitely this exchange of stakeholders, a little bit like today, it's very, very important for us, because we see the role of the EPC as quite an important one under the renovation wave. One of the elements that we're looking is how we can use it, for example, to incentivize, so to convince more people to carry out renovations. But we also want to improve the coverage of the EPC. As I mentioned, the number of buildings for which we have information across the EU is relatively limited. It depends on the member states. Some member states, for example, Ireland and Belgium, have very high EPC coverage, approximately 40 to 50%. But then there are other member states where the coverage is much more limited, under 5% in some cases. So we need to see ways to improve and facilitate the use of the EPC. And finally, one of the issues being discussed today is how to improve the format of the EPC and facilitate exchange. We currently have 27 different EPC systems across the EU, and actually for Belgium, it's 3 different systems. It's not just one. So we have a variety of EPC systems, and we need to be able to exchange information between them as much as possible. So. And I stop here because actually, at least at DG Energy right now, we are very much interested in listening to what people have to say about EPCs. What are the problems? What are the solutions? What things could be done? Because we are precisely at this moment where we are starting to think about what we are going to put into this revision of the EPBD. So I'm very, very interested to listen to what you have to say. And because of this, I don't want to say any more. And I pass the control of the presentation and the session back to the organizers. And just to say thank you very much for being here today. and we will listen very carefully to what you have to say.
Thank you to you, Mr. Garcia. It was very, very interesting, and I'm sure many of our attendees were very interested in the next steps that you just mentioned. So this was our second presentation, and it leads us to our panel discussion, finally, our first one of the day, actually. This gives me the opportunity to remind you again that you can ask your question in the question box. I hope everyone has found it. Don't be shy. We are here to answer them as well. And we have received one already about some technical thing. And yes, indeed, the presentations will be shared afterwards, so that you can access them. So let's move on. Our first panel. What is necessary to enhance and embed EPC to become a driver for the EU renovation wave? To start with this question, I would like to go on and already directly ask that question to one of our panelists. So if you agree, Mr. Kanzel, we can start with you. You can open your camera if you feel not too shy about it, and your microphone as well. So Mr. Kos, you are a senior researcher at the Technical University of Vienna, and you are coordinator of the Extender projects that was just briefly mentioned by Mr. Lewis a few minutes ago. As it was mentioned, in Extendo, you have developed a toolbox introducing 10 features of next generation EPCs. Maybe you will tell us more about them in a minute, but first, well, let me ask this question directly to you. What is necessary for EPCs to become a driver for the EU renovation wave? I do not see you are connecting now. There you are.
Me? Yes.
We can hear you indeed.
Yes, perfect. So first of all, thanks for this question. Thanks for inviting me and to participate in this really exciting webinar today. Yeah, thanks for this question, which is quite challenging. On the other hand, we could also say it's simple. I think we should mainly increase reliability. And thus the acceptance and the value of EPCs to the end users. But then, of course, the next question, how to exactly do this, is not so easy. And I see here first, as we in Extendo and also you in QualDeEPC and all the other projects try to develop improved indicators, improved calculation schemes, also to communicate better this difference between observed measured energy consumption and calculated energy demand. I think that's an important topic. And then also to link the activities around EPCs better with other measures, other activities in the context of building renovation and EPCs. So, for example, Pau Garcia already mentioned before building passports. I think the recommendations provided in EPCs are important and they need to be improved and enhanced. But on the other hand, they, I think, will never reach and should never have the ambition to reach the same level as the recommendations provided in a building renovation passport. And similar, we could say it's important to link EPCs with logbooks, with one-stop shops, to really exploit this full potential of EPCs. So I hope these were some ideas for the further discussion now.
Indeed, indeed. It is very interesting, and thank you so much. Please stay connected as we welcome our second panelist first. I believe the best we can do is maybe to introduce everyone and then continue the discussion. So, Miss Céline Carré, if you are ready, you can turn on your camera and your microphone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you.
So, Ms. Carré, you are the Vice President of EuroACE and Head of Public Affairs of Saint-Gobain. And in this quality, you know the perspective of companies engaged in energy efficiency in buildings very well. So what, from your point of view, what role can EPCs play in the EU renovation wave? What has to be improved?
Yes, thanks. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to exchange with you today. I'm very excited about the months ahead and this work on the Buildings Directive as the next step from the renovation wave. And yes, so on EPCs, first, I'd like to state that they're not perfect, but they exist and they have been improved, and it is in such very good. I'd rather see the glass which is half full on this one. But I believe that they can also be instrumental in helping to accelerate the renovation. I find it also difficult to completely dissociate the discussions of today from the discussion on building renovation passport, because projecting EPCs into the future means looking at dynamics and looking into roadmaps for renovation. But I'd like to anchor maybe three elements where I think EPCs can help and make the difference in the future. The first one is that they can trigger and re-engineer trust in the renovation. It has to do with who is doing my certificate, and in that, in which capacity is that person doing it. It has to do also with the training and certification of the people doing it. It's very important. And then, yeah, acknowledge methodologies are important, because too often we hear about people saying, well, I've asked 3 different people and I had 3 different ratings. How is that possible? So that should ideally be fixed. And then it's the way it is done. I think it would be very important to have a dialogue with the people, with the building owners. It would not occur to anyone to go to get a test or a scan in a hospital and not to get a debrief with the doctors. So in the same way, this dialogue is super important, and I think it's been covered in a number of projects. So the first point, trigger trust. The second point I'd like to flag here is the possibility for EPCs to really trigger understanding, in the sense of taking ownership of what's happening in my building. It has to do with understanding what is in this certificate, which people too often put as a file before going to the notary, but not something that is triggering their own understanding. What is kilowatt hour per square meter? What is relation with the energy bill? What does A, B, C, D mean? And in that sense, I think that we could go much further in terms of explaining the relationship with comfort, for example. So example, EPC F or G, what does that mean in winter? In winter, it means that broadly when it's too cold, then you're going to have to eat more, that the boiler is going to restart every half hour or something, and this is costing that much, or you are too cold in this room. And same for summer comfort. So creating a story around the EPC would be very important. And then you could also expand the meaning of the EPC in terms of, yes, how much does my building emit in terms of CO2? How does that compare to my mobility or food? I mean, we have created an awareness in which EPC can feed and provide the detailed story for the building. Same maybe for pollution. How about all my village renovating their house? What does that mean for the kids in that school in terms of the air they are breathing? So the empowerment is very important, based on, yeah, a link between fact and stories. And the last point I'd like to flag is that they are also a tool for better integrating policy tools in a sense. It has been mentioned, but the link with finance is there, but not always that clear for people getting subsidies. So in some circumstances, yes, you check the EPC after, but not always. So I think there it can be better done. And maybe also it can be an incentive to do to take the next step and not just 1 or 2 measures in the spirit of what is being done with the KfW in Germany. So the link with finance and the link with policy, I see that EPCs are there to create a story between what people can recognize themselves and improve themselves, and a long-term strategy for the building stock. So to create the link between steps I can undertake in my individual renovation and what my country has committed to, or my city has committed to do by 2025, 2030. So this link can be made. And as soon as this is there, I believe people are more engaged, are more ready to plan, to engage, to project themselves into renovation. And ultimately, I think we will see. So we are already talking about evolution of EPCs towards building renovation passports. But ultimately, they have an essential role to also better articulate something which is, for me, the challenge with the renovation wave, the articulation of financing, so public, private, and regulatory measures. Too often, including in my own country, but in many others, we tend to see policies for renovation in yes, as either or. We do either finance or we regulate, and we start with minimum energy performance requirements. I think we should be doing the two, and EPCs are at the core of this. I stop here for the moment. Thank you.
Thanks to you. I'm sure this has triggered already a couple of questions from our audience. Before we get back to the points you mentioned, the two of you, please let me welcome Miss Stephanie Vesela. Stephanie, you are a project partner of QualDeEPC. We are colleagues, and you are the energy expert for buildings at the German Energy Agency, DINA. And you have been one of the main authors of the QualDeEPC Green Paper on good practice in EPC assessment, certification, and use, which we'll discover together actually in a few minutes when with Dr. Stefan Thomas. But before we dig deeper and we go on with our discussion, can you please maybe give us please tell us more about the rationale behind the creation of this green paper and why this project is focusing on the 7 priorities that I will just show in a few seconds. Yes, why this green paper?
Yeah, so first, let me thank you, Clémence, for inviting me to the panel. So the green paper was developed based on a very extensive evaluation of all the components concerning the energy performance certification. So not only the EPC form, but all the processes are around those certifications. So this evaluation included a very detailed analysis of a long list of options that could potentially be improved. This long list was shortened by seeking the input from stakeholders via questionnaires or interviews, and also in our first national workshops. With the further analysis also so for the shortened list, we also looked at the project or the topics that could actually be developed in the project and what could be implemented in most partner countries. Other criteria also involve the importance of the development of in the partner countries, success factors, and the ease of implementation. And also we looked at where's the overlap, or try to avoid too much overlap with the sister projects of Extendo and UCERT. In the end, we decided and identified 7 priorities, which will be presented by Dr. Thomas in a couple of minutes. But the general idea then of the green paper was to first summarize the current state of the implementation in the partner countries and those in other EU countries. Then identify best practice examples. And then finally, conduct policy proposals that may be possible to implement in most partner countries. I say most because what we really discovered during the project is that the EPCs are really, really different in all the countries, and also how they're implemented and included. Yes, so that's it.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. It is interesting you mentioned the diversity of the different EPC schemes, because we have actually received a question from Fatima Subida, who is an architect in Portugal and is very interested in contributing to the renovation wave, and is wondering if the EPCs, if these EPCs would be new and would be similar across Europe, thanks to in its evolution with the renovation wave. Sorry, and so if the existing EPCs in the different countries would then disappear. I believe you, Stephanie, or maybe Pau would be a good person to ask this question to. Pau, if you are available, and if you can already answer this question of Fatima, it would be it would help, I guess.
Sorry, so if I understood the question correctly, it would be, okay, let's assume that there is a significant remodeling of the EPC schemes across the EU. What would happen to the existing ones? If that's a very good question. I guess it would depend on the level of the changes in the EPC schemes, because as it has already been mentioned, there are very, very significant differences between the different member states. This has to do because of historical reasons, the way certificates were designed at the beginning, but also because of the way the different calculation methodologies work in each member state, and the way the buildings work in each member state. Of course, it's not just about the climate. So what I can say is that in member states where there have been significant changes to EPCs, the old EPCs largely remained valid. But then again, the changes were not dramatic, let's say. But yeah, the issue of the historical EPCs or the existing EPCs, it's one of the things that we need to take into account, whether it would require recertification, which I doubt that would be the case, or whether some factors could be some correction factors could be introduced, for example, or whether the EPC would have a label indicating that it's an EPC under an old system or things like that. That would depend. It's one of the advantages and the disadvantage of the EPCs is that the scheme is relatively open and relatively flexible. Is not, for example, something like the labeling regulation, for example, where if there is a change, then all the labels have to be changed. So if there is a change on the labeling regulation for washing machines, then there is a deadline, for example, to change all the labeling in all the machines, in all the washing machines across Europe. So there are means and ways to be able to adapt to this situation.
All right, thank you so much for your answer. Yes, Stephanie, if you wish to also intervene on this question, I think from the discussion we have with the different partners, I believe we can also be a bit also consider that this question is very difficult to answer straight away.
Yeah, as you will see in the presentation by Stefan, we try to propose the same EPCs for all partner countries, and actually it proved quite difficult because also the setting of the EPCs is quite different. So some partner countries really use it only as an information tool, and in some partner countries it's already an outcome of an extensive energy audit. So it might be quite tricky to actually get one European system. So it would mean that in some countries the system would have to change quite significantly.
Lucas, I also believe that in your project you have also most probably encountered such questions.
Yes. Yes, for me it's a very interesting question. It was indeed a very a question that was important to us, not only during the working phase of the on the project, but already during the proposal phase. Actually, how strongly should we try to propose a harmonized system? And in the end, our approach was and is more that we think it will be a gradual development of continuously or step by step enhancing the systems across countries. And what we in Extendo have concluded is that it might be good to develop a set of different modules. These are our 10 features. And member states can also pick of this variety of different modules how to enhance EPCs, and if there would be some member states that would pick up one or the other module, then at least for this module there might be some first way of harmonization. But I think to my mind, it's really important to be also careful and to accept the differences that exist currently, and also the barriers of changing systems currently in place. So that's the reason why I'm personally not over exaggerating or not overemphasizing this relevance of a super harmonized one European EPC scheme. But I'm not sure whether all in the panel agree on that. Would be interesting to know.
Maybe we can ask this question to someone more who's closer to the private sector, Ms. Carré. Céline, if you would like to react on this.
Yes, and definitely it merits further discussion. But I would see also probably here a gradual harmonization. The change could be quite big, as it was said already. And in my view, in order, and also relating to my previous remarks, in order to create trust and ownership that is useful for the renovation wave, comparability of EPCs first needs to be secure at local level, so that people living in the same either area, city, or even in a country have a decent comparability. So that would already be something quite good. And then for comparability between countries, I see the need and the drive also coming from the financial sector, where some actors have bigger portfolios, and yes, it makes sense to compare them. And EPCs, they are currently stand a bit probably in the way of achieving this possibility to compare, and also to accelerate decarbonization. So that has to be considered, that maybe some of the segments will be the first candidates and are going to help this transition towards comparability across Europe.
Thank you. This is very, very interesting. Unfortunately, we're a bit running late. I am sorry. So what I suggest is that we go on into the details of our proposals at QualDeEPC, and then let's continue the conversation in the second panel discussion, if you all agree. So I will invite Dr. Stefan Thomas, who was there at the beginning with me, to present the QualDeEPC. So, yes.
Clémence.
Hello again.
Yes,
Dr. Stefan Thomas, you are the director of the division Energy, Transport and Climate Policy at Wuppertal Institute, and you have co-authored the green paper together with Stephanie. In this presentation, you will give us a bigger picture of what it is exactly.
Yes, thank you, Clémence, for introducing me. And hello to all participants. And I'm really glad that so many people joined us for this subject, which is an expert subject, I think. But it's important to enhance EPCs to the next generation. So I have the pleasure to present the 7 draft proposals that we developed for our green paper, which are now discussed in the second round of national workshops and in this workshop today. As both Clémence and Olaf have said, the objectives of our project of QualDeEPC is on one hand to improve the quality and cross-EU convergence of EPCs and EPC schemes, and second, to improve the link between EPCs and deep renovation. We have 4 phases in our project, and we have finished the first phase of analysis. That is a bit of difference to Extendo, that we did not specify all the kinds of improvements we'd like to work on in the proposal already, and Stephanie has said some words about the process of selection to our 7 priorities. We're currently in the second phase of development and testing, and in addition to the workshops where we're testing the proposals with stakeholders, we are also testing them on up to 100 pilot buildings, both residential and non-residential. And this will be converged to the white paper, which is then the set of concrete proposals and tools that we have developed at the EU level. In parallel, in the third phase, we already started to adapt some of them to country needs, and we aim to implement some of the tools as far as we can. The policy proposals, of course, need to be decided by policymakers, and so we'll have a roadmap for further dialogue and a third round of workshops in the third phase. And finally, develop a sustainability strategy and conclusive policy recommendations, and have another 4th round of workshops in this last phase. So this intensive dialogue is very intrinsic to the project approach that we have. And of course, we will aim to disseminate the findings to the relevant audience in the end. So the 7 draft concepts and proposals have already been briefly presented. In fact, 2 of them, the online tool for comparing EPC recommendations to deep energy renovation recommendations, and the deep renovation network platforms were mentioned in our proposal, but the others are the result of our selection process. And so these first 3, the improved recommendations, which are going more into the direction of deep energy renovation than is currently the case, together with the online tool and the deep renovation network platforms, are addressing the link between EPCs and deep renovation. The 4th one, the regulatory mandatory EPC assessor training, is going into the direction that has been mentioned in this first round of the panel, to improve the reliability of the EPCs in general, but especially also regarding the recommendations. And the other three are then aiming to improve the user friendliness of the EPC and the use in the building market. Whereas the user friendliness is also addressing renovation recommendations, of course, in the framework of our project. Regarding what happens to existing EPCs, we probably have less a problem because we are not addressing the calculation methods or the calculation content with our 7 proposals. But still this would mean quite a lot of change in at least some of the countries. So for each of these priorities, we first summarize the current situation in the partner countries. We collected best practice examples and then developed a proposal for each of the topics. And this is either a policy proposal or a tool or a combination of both. So these proposals are, for the moment, cross-country proposals that can be used not only in our 7 partner countries, but also in the other 20 EU member states. Some of these details may not be feasible in specific countries because they would require a more thorough energy audit, for instance, or they already exist. For instance, there are tools or deep renovation network platforms in some countries. There is specific advertisement guidelines already existing in Sweden. And so in the next work package, we will develop country-specific adaptations of all these proposals. So going into a bit of detail, as much as I can, for the 7 draft proposals. The recommendations, currently we find that the renovation recommendations are often oriented either towards the minimum legal requirements, or they often only include low-cost measures. So not all the measures that would be feasible, in case of major renovation would be required, but they are not recommended as something that could be done in any case or when renovation happens. That could be a misinterpretation of the terms cost-effective or cost-optimal. So our aim is to improve these recommendations to make them comparable with deeper energy renovation, and maybe make them the first step to a building renovation passport. As Selina said, that could be an ultimate goal to enhance the EPCs to building renovation passports, or to attach the renovation passport to the EPC and vice versa in the future. What is deep renovation? There are different potential definitions, and we've come up with a draft definition of our own, where we said the guiding principle would be that there are component efficiency levels that are derived from the NZEP standards, because these can be considered cost optimal. So in the green paper and also in the next slides, there is currently a list of recommendations that could be made depending on the assessment of the building, which are enhanced in terms of their efficiency levels. And for the moment, we've provided example values from Germany. These, of course, need to be adapted to the national situation. So this slide shows more the building shell, actions regarding the building shell. Then there are actions regarding the installed systems, heating, cooling, hot water, and ventilation system, and a number of other actions that could be recommended. So you are all invited to take a look at these details after the workshop and send us back your comments. And there is also, you find the short version of the green paper in the control bar. So the second priority is the online tool for deep energy renovation recommendations. The master tool will be based on the existing Greek Home Energy Check tool, but this will also be enhanced during this project. The aim is to have a user-friendly user interface for building owners mainly, but also maybe for tenants. Owners could inform themselves what they could discuss with the EPC assessor as potential renovation recommendations. Or they could get a second opinion on recommendations from an EPC that already exists. This tool will provide an estimate of the energy demand of a specific building based on either the national calculation software or a simplified software. It will provide suggestions for renovation recommendations, which will be based on the list from our priority A, and a comparison between the current and renovated state. But because it's only a simplified tool, it will also recommend the user to obtain a full energy audit to validate the energy demand and the recommendations. So there will be a list of input values to be done by the user. And the result will be an estimate of the current energy efficiency, a selection of renovation options that also the user can select to see what is the result of different combinations. And then, the estimation of the energy efficiency in case of renovation, and also some information on the cost that would be needed to achieve these renovations. Then such a tool and the EPC is not probably the information, all of the information that someone needs in order to start a renovation. And also there needs a need for more support. And so we have developed a concept for the what we call the deep renovation network platforms, which can be understood as a one-stop shop for building owners willing to renovate, plus a networking platform for supply-side actors and for the joint communication and marketing. So it's a bit more of what is usually understood as a one-stop shop. It can take different forms and would help building owners to take the steps that are needed for renovation once they have an EPC. These could be either an online platform or a local or regional physical hub where people could go to and get advice after the Corona crisis is over. And they could either have information only, but as comprehensive as possible as a one-stop shop for all information, or also get support either through guiding or coaching through the implementation, or even with implementation such as in the Danish Better Homes example. And the basic version would be an online platform for information only. But a policy proposal then is to combine such a national online platform with national support for a network of local or regional physical hubs that offer also coaching and maybe even implementation support. I can only go very quickly through this. We will aim to implement a minimum version you see in the right column, either a new platform or improving existing platforms, with general information on savings and costs, link with the renovation tools, link with the energy performance certificates, of course, linking also with building renovation passports with this concept, what may be existing already or is developing. Supporting with at least information or even with finding experts and building contractors, information on materials or suppliers for products. Financing is of course also important. Then services that are more related to the supply side, like active marketing or a networking platform. And there is even more potential services in an extended version, which I don't have time to go through, unfortunately. That would go more towards implementation and coaching. Then for the EPC assessor training, we have currently a preliminary policy proposal. The idea is that such training should be periodic because there are changes, and both in the EPCs and in also the solutions for the recommendations for renovation. And we suggest that it should be mandatory to have such a training for maybe all 3 to 5 years to maintain a certification and registration as an EPC assessor. It could take the form of training courses or workshops and seminars, and also coaching in the verification of the EPCs that an assessor has issued in the past or is doing during the training. And we proposed some parts of the training content in general, but all of this also will have to be adapted to the national situation in the next step. For the EPC form, the template itself, we think that it should also be enhanced to make it more useful to building owners, but also to potential buyers and tenants as a first step to deep renovation and for the building, buying and rental market. And so we developed a general template for an EPC form as a policy proposal. But this, of course, will also need to be adapted to the country situation. We had a long list of potential improvements. We think, for instance, that also in asset rating EPCs based on calculation, it would be good to have information on past metered or energy consumption, or in any case, if it's modeled, and also the modeled energy consumption. There should be some more detail on the existing building envelope and heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. There should not only be the current energy classification, but also improved classification and energy performance and the energy savings that can be achieved. Also, the renovation recommendations should be more detailed than they are in many countries currently, and have an estimate of the cost. In order to be the first step towards a deep renovation building renovation passport, there should be information on what could be useful combinations of renovations and stepwise implementation. There should be links to further information, like to a deep renovation network platform. And so we have a 4-page general template, which of course first has the general building data. and then has an energy classification with a form similar to the EU energy label for appliances and to an A2 something scale that many EPCs already have currently. Would give the energy performance data in the form that is required, but would also present the energy class after a package of renovation, which we call main option now, and the potential energy savings from implementing this main option. There are also member states already that have this second energy class presented in the EPCs. Then an energy consumption table, also for asset rating EPCs. We're currently checking if that is possible with limited effort in our countries that currently only have asset rating EPCs. And then a color-coded evaluation of the current status of building components, where the values for green, yellow, and red, of course, need to be determined at national level. And green would in general equal the recommendations from our priority A, the improved deep renovation recommendations. The third page would present the recommendations, which would be selected and have energy efficiency levels according to our priority A, receive the same color code, which then normally should be green. And on the right side, you see the column with the selection of recommendations that will be combined to the main option. So it's tick boxes.
Stefan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
Yes, we are running a bit late. I'm sorry.
Sorry, then last page of the EPC template, I wanted to explain this in a bit of more detail, is a box for the description of useful combinations and stepwise implementation, which could be the first step to a building renovation passport, and a few other items, including a link to, in the future, a deep renovation network platform. Finally, it is mandatory should be mandatory in all member states to include some data, the energy performance and or energy class in advertising of buildings or dwellings. And we have two proposals here. One is advertising guidelines to make it easier for building owners and thus to increase compliance with the requirements and make it easier for potential buyers and tenants to understand. And they could be voluntary or mandatory. We have proposed what could be in those guidelines in terms of content, but also in terms of publication, from parameters to soft copies to graphical and text examples for various media, and also a very simple legal text for making the use of these guidelines mandatory. And finally, a policy proposal, what else could be done to improve compliance with the mandatory use of EPCs in advertisements. And this is, of course, appointing a nodal authority in charge of improving compliance, equipping it with the needed resources and competences. And it will have three main tasks to, first of all, check, random checking of whether this requirement is followed in advertisements, then raising awareness of this legal requirement, and penal provisions in case of non-compliance. So I'm sorry if I have used a little too much time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Stefan. Yes, it is a bit dense indeed, but it's okay. We are now all free to only go on with the next panel discussion we have for today, and we will go on until the end of this workshop. So as you can see, we have a new participant. Let me please invite this Miss Margarita Puente. Margarita, if you can turn on your camera and your microphone, and I also invite Celine and Lucas to do the same. Margarita, you are project and training manager at ESCAN, and you are also a project partner of QualDeEPC, and you actually have carried out already some stakeholder workshop at the national level, so in Spain. Are you already able to share with us some preliminary inputs from your stakeholders regarding
Yes,
regarding the proposals of QualDeEPC? Sorry.
thank you very much. We had the second national workshop last week, just 2 or 3 days ago. So I am sorry I didn't have much time to prepare a nice presentation. I will try to share. Can you see my screen or not?
Not yet, but it may take a while. As go to webinar is sometimes a bit slow with the connection.
Now? A ver.
Yes.
Okay, this is my notes, a draft summary. Yes. So in Spain, the second workshop was online due to COVID situation. We have 50 people registered, and we had 2 days with this workshop. In the first day, we present the first 3 priorities of the Green Book, and the second day, the rest of the priorities. The first day, 32 participants attended, and the second day, 26. The people came from the Ministry of Ecology Transition, the National Energy Agency, also several regional energy agencies, because the EPCs are managed by these agencies, by regions. Also town halls, social housing agencies, different professionals of engineers, also architects, social housing. And in the other side of the stakeholders, the users, we had presidents of owners communities, because here in Spain, each building has like one representative, one we call president of this building. It's normally one owner of one apartment of the building. Also manufacturers of insulation materials, Isover, that belongs to Saint-Gobain, was there. Association of windows manufacturers, distributors and installers, also laboratory of quality control, innovation and research centers. So a very, I think, big group of, I will say, different stakeholders. Before the workshop, we sent to all the attendants the Green Book. In Spanish, we translate it, also the presentation and the questionnaire. This is the agenda. So the first day, we had this improving the recommendation for renovation on the EPC, and in the table you can see that we have included here the values of Spain. So we have Germany and Spain, and in the first row you can see external wall insulation. We consider a good insulation with the standard of NCEB buildings or similar. And here, the second row, for these near loss zero energy consumption buildings, but for new buildings. So two different, I will say, standards. And here the data of the transmittances used. And as you can see, in Germany, we have these numbers. In Spain, another numbers, different numbers, because maybe the climate conditions are different, or the restrictions in the legislation are different. Here also roof cover insulation, we consider this, and we have also different values. I don't know what will happen with other countries, so we have to maybe to consider this for the software, to consider this for the EPC form, and here for all the different replacement that Stefan has presented. So the most important parts of the building that should be replaced, that should be improved, is the external wall, the roof, the ground, the windows, the doors, and also the system, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, etc. I am not going to go more in detail. About the online tool, in general, the participants liked the draft of the tool because it's already preliminary. We are developing the tool, but they like that the tool will provide the energy savings and cost of several options for renovation. And this tool should be considered as a first step for renovation. This is important because the tool will estimate the cost for the renovation, but if the owner of or a company wants to invest in deep energy renovation, they should perform more accurate cost calculations. The next one is the deep renovation network platforms. The basic version of the platform has been very welcomed by the participant professionals, energy agencies, and owners. They prefer online website with information, not physical hub. They like that all information can be obtained easily from the house. No going to a place. Okay. Also about the level of this platform, they prefer one national platform. We had one of the participants from the National Energy Agency comment that this is very necessary, this platform. Also, 5 of the participants thought the platform is very ambitious, and most of the participants in the workshop stated that the main services that should be included are the first one, the general information about deep energy renovation, also links to all the certification data, because now it is a regional level. We have comunidades autónomas, and all this information is in the different portals, different websites of these regional governments. So it will be very useful that the QualDeEPC platform includes all these links. And the third one that they say they preferred as very relevant for the platform is the information, the links to the financing programs. About the training, okay. In Spain, there is now a draft of legislation about certification, and this will include professional qualification and experience required for the certification. At this moment, today, to perform an EPC, it is only required university degree on engineering or architecture. One example is in Castilla y León, in one of our regions. There are more than 6,000 EPC assessors, and 72% of them are architects, 18 are industrial engineers, 2% civil engineers, 2% agricultural engineers, etc. So in the workshop, as conclusion, they say that it should be mandatory, as it is now, to have a university degree or professional module to be able to perform the EPC. About the training contents, the participant prefer that or choose legislation and technologies for these training contents. Also, if necessary, maybe software for certification. For architects, the training should be focused on these systems, and for engineering, the additional courses or seminar about construction materials, insulation, glazing, etc., and the software training for both of these groups. And about if there should be any additional requirements for these EPC assessors, for instance, issuance of a number of EPC in a certain period of time. The general opinion of the workshop was that no further requirements should be included. This proposed requirement to perform a number of certificates in a certain period of time was not welcome, because they think the important is not the number of EPC, but is the quality of them. About the format that we have developed of the EPC, the new format. The questions were, how does this new EPC compare to the official one? If there is too much or missing information, if it is adjustable to national needs. Also, definition of limits for user-friendly energy rating, and how could we achieve uniform classification on EPCs in the EU. In general, the participants liked it very much, the enhanced EPC, because first of all, it is only 4 pages, so they thought the length is perfect. Also, the design, the colors are very friendly, and the main data is included. 2 participants say that a suggestion could be to create 2 models, one for professionals and another for users. The model, as it is included now in the Green Book, they thought is okay for the professionals, and the one for the users, the tenants, the people who lives in the house, and they don't have a real knowledge about what is what is the transmittance and all this data. Maybe this second model could be without these use values. About the other question, the members of the workshop agree that the starting point will be to consider Europe with European climatic zones and define the energy classification with this consideration. So if we start, I will say, we'll start a new certification process for all Europe. We start with this, I will say, maybe new European areas, maybe not so complicated 10 climatic areas, and then provide all these values, all these U values, considering these areas. Afterwards, making the software and also making the enhanced EPC. Okay, what else? As Stephanie said, we have seen many different EPCs, some of them with A+ and A++ classes. The participants prefer not too many classes, so they prefer keeping A to G class for this European enhanced EPCs.
Hi, Margarita. I'm very sorry
Yes.
to cut you now, but we have
Okay.
the clock is ticking very fast, and unless you have some final word you would like to share with us, I propose we go on.
Okay, we go on. Maybe there are some questions, and okay.
Yes, indeed, we do have one question. It is more addressed to Stefan, and it is regarding the methodology of the green paper itself. Is the methodology behind this enhanced EPC going to be harmonized across Europe countries? We have touched a little bit about it, but the question itself is really, is the calculation adapted for each national calculation methodology? And is this calculation methodology in line with the existing EPCs in the different countries? Stefan, you can maybe answer this.
Yes. It's interesting to see this discussion in Spain, but in fact, in our project, we have assumed that we have more the presentation could be enhanced in a way similar and getting more similar in at least the 7 countries that are covered in our project. But the template, the master template, for instance, assumes if one country has an A+ to G scale, it can remain with this scale and also continue to use its calculation methodology. If another one has maybe A to H, it would also stay. So in this first step, let's say in our proposal, we were not aiming to interfere with the current scales and calculations. But this is maybe rather the USERT project is looking at creating EPCs based on the common new EU calculation methodology. So of course this is something that could be then also enhanced in the second step. It's yeah, an interesting idea that we can pick up and say it's something that could be discussed at the EU level between the member states, whether they want also more harmonization in the calculation and in the scales.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, it is always an ever-growing question. We have received a very interesting one, which is going slightly a bit more general again. So the question comes from Lila Recamaras, and she's asking if EPC could also include information about embodied energy, so the whole construction process, the transport, the construction of materials and everything. So maybe Lucas, if you want to jump on this question first, and we can then ask Céline if she has some more insight. But yeah, could EPC also include this?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So I personally, I think it's a really important question, a really important topic. In particular, yeah, when we enter a period when the running energy consumption of buildings is getting lower and lower, and buildings becoming more and more efficient, I think the focus also needs to be more on embedded energy. I think that's important. Still, I have to admit, in Extendo, we don't have a strong focus on it. So I guess this leaves also room for at least one of the additional projects that Olaf also mentioned in the beginning. But yeah, I agree. It's an important topic. Yes.
Yes, Céline, maybe you have, from your perspective, some insight as well.
Yes, thank you. Yes, sure. I think the coverage of whole life carbon of buildings is a growing preoccupation and a legitimate preoccupation, and something on which we all need to act. At European level, there is work which is on the track with the roadmap for whole life cycle carbon in buildings by 2023. But yes, there is this question of how the revision of the EPBD coming in less than 1 year could help structure the debate. And on this, so this is something that some member states are already looking at. So this is good. Ideally, we would like to avoid that in a few years we have 27 different schemes on how to account for embodied carbon. So that's the challenge. And the train is there. And as Lucas was saying, yes, definitely. I mean, for new buildings which are very low consumption, possibly positive energy buildings, it makes full sense to also accelerate reduction of embodied carbon. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, it comes back to this question of harmonization and coming from national to a more European stage. Yes, going back to the proposals of QualDeEPC themselves, I wanted to have your opinions on the proposals that were presented. Do you think that the QualDeEPC proposals are covering the most important aspects? Is there anything missing somewhere? For this, I would also like to maybe ask the audience to share their opinion as well. For this, we have prepared a two question polls. So I will launch the first one, and if you are, of course, very much welcome to answer or not. But it would be very important to us to know a bit more what our audience is thinking and what exactly is in mind. So you should be able to start voting now. If the panelists want to answer as well, this is great. From our panelists, I will come back to you, Céline, because you were the last one speaking. Is there anything that you have spotted as being with which you really agree with, in particular in our proposals in the QualDeEPC project? I put the 7 priorities. You should be able to see them again.
Yes, I think all of them has. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, all of them have definitely a role to play. I think when it comes to supporting national renovation strategies, and for example, the implementation of those LTRS, the long-term renovation strategies, there should be a good match between the weak points analyzed in those strategies and what elements from those 7 proposals could really make an impact. Maybe not implement them all at once, but what's interesting is that they also target different stakeholders, and all of them have their bits to do. I mean, their little homework. When I see, for example, that we're still struggling with enforcement and with the compliance of whether the EPC is being made available at the right time, I think we have to hurry up, and there have to be specific systems for enforcing that, because if this information comes too late to the potential buyer or renter, then it's not valuable. It doesn't help at all. So things like this. Maybe on the recommendations regarding the certifiers, This is where different publics, for example, engineers, or we've heard in Spain, engineers or architects would be trained in specific areas. I think we should also not forget about the dimension of dialogue with the building owner, because I don't think that building owner care so much. I mean, this is very important also for harmonizing, but they need to understand the story behind the methodology and then what they can do. So I think one important thing, and it goes again in the direction of what has been discussed with other Horizon Europe and Edge 2020 project for building renovation passport, is to train those people in undertaking the right dialogue point with owners. And last but not least is that none of those recommendations is a standalone. They are coming in a broader context where support like one-stop shop, but also subsidies, but also regulatory measures are actually very important. And if this is missing, maybe the expectations that could be placed in some of the improvement points, the 7 points we have seen, could not deliver impact. So they need to be put in interactions with other drivers where we expect tangible improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one question for Lucas. Anybody of the German partners having an influence on the definition of the new of the new document covering EPC data? The European harmonization appreciates this kind of definition. Oh, I'm sorry, my question has just jumped. Yes, Luca, I'm really sorry. I will try to find it again if I have. But meanwhile, just one quick thing. So we have already received a couple of answers from our poll. A slight majority agrees with our proposals. However, we still have 44% who says that they would agree in only some part, and 3% who do not like it. So this is very interesting. Thank you so much. Oh, here it is again. So Lucas, sorry. Anybody of the German partners having an influence on the definition of the new XML covering EPC data? The European harmonization is appreciated, and schemes might foresee different calculation, but should allow sharing data. What do you think?
So I'm not sure whether I understood the question correctly. So is the question whether, let's say, the calculation procedures should be done in or should be designed in a way that it's possible to also share input and maybe output data of EPC calculations between countries? Is this the question?
I must admit, I am not sure either. Maybe the person who asked can be a bit more specific in the question box again. And
okay, but yeah. So if this is the question, let's say then I think it's at least taking the current status of calculation of the difference in calculation standards in different countries. I think it's extremely ambitious to really develop a common scheme that allows also sharing the data between countries. In Extendo, we are our colleagues from Vito and a colleague of mine has been working on a spreadsheet to identify parameters in different EPC calculations in different countries that are similar and different. And yeah, there are huge differences. So there would be really the need to yeah, to a strong harmonization push, which I currently don't see, and I'm not sure how much effort should be put on this aspect actually.
Okay.
Or rather trying to improving the trust and reliability, as has been said earlier, also also on the national and regional level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. Indeed, this so we have closed the poll for those who have tried to answer it a bit too late. I'm sorry. We have another question that I will launch in a few seconds. I wanted to thank you all already for your participation. We are approaching the end. We have only 4 minutes left now. So what I suggest is that we can ask the one last question and then do some wrap up, which is there any aspect you would not agree with our presentation and proposal? This is a bit a tricky question. I understand it, but if you see there are some room for improvement, this is why we would like to have your opinion. Maybe Céline, if you could share with us some thoughts on this difficult question.
Yeah, well, there is no difficult question, but no thanks. Well, there is nothing in the sun that I would disagree with, but like as I just said, I think that the impact of implementing those recommendations will result from picking the ones that are maybe the most valuable. If it's a country with very low, as it was mentioned, with very low coverage of EPCs, then the first step maybe to speed that by ensuring compliance and that the EPC is being shown in real estate agencies. So and then the other dimension I think is to plug those recommendations into the policy making together with the debate on financing and on minimum energy performance requirements, because I think it will also speed up the understanding that individual building owners have of their EPCs if they are able to join the dots, if I may. So that would be my last remark. And on this, I think that in the 21st century we have formidable tools that are available to people on their phones, and that this also should be helping our discussion and helping the improvement there. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucas, do you have anything you would like to share with us?
Yes. So first of all, I don't disagree with any of your conclusions. I think they are all very relevant and important, and can and hopefully will contribute to also renovation wave. Where I had let's say a question, but probably we're too late to really discuss it, is how let's say how you intend that the tool for providing more information on recommendations should then also, or which role this tool exactly should build in addition to the recommendations provided in the EPC, and maybe also in addition to recommendations providing in the building renovation passport. So how you envisage that these different elements should combine together. So I think they can also all be complementary to each other. I just didn't get this picture clearly. Let's see.
Maybe Stefan, you would like to react on this, although you have less than a minute to do so.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, it's the tool can be the first step to start the process before the EPC or renovation passport. Of course, if a building has a good building renovation passport, the owner or if that is published also to somebody interested in buying a building, will not need the tool anymore. But currently, when recommendations on EPCs may be weak, or as I said, before starting the EPC process could be the first step. Such a tool. I mean, such tools do exist in many countries, and there's a reason why they are needed.
Thank you very much. Unless there are some very large, urgent topic or misunderstandings, I propose that we finish here. It is already 2. It was very, very interesting. I'm a bit sad we could not cover all the questions we have received. They were all very interesting, with great insights, and I'm sure if we had a bit more time, it would have been a pleasure to answer them all. I would like as well to thank all the panelists for taking the time to be with us today, and also to the audience, of course. We had a great audience. You answered the 2 poll questions, and they were very, very interesting. I have one little thing I would like to ask you all, is that if you could in the chat indicate from which country you are from, so that we can see to what extent this EPC was also interesting to people outside of the countries covered by the consortium partner. That would be wonderful. On this note, let me quickly go through my slides, because we thought maybe some refreshment would be necessary, but turned out not. So as mentioned, thank you so much. You have here our the address for the website. We are also there, present in Twitter and in LinkedIn. Do not hesitate to contact us there if you have some more questions. And well, have a very nice afternoon. It was very nice to see you all. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you.